Welcome to Live from my office. And once again, it's a great pleasure to say, and I guess this is a guy thing. Guys can go forever without seeing their friends and people they really care about. And then the minute you reconnect, it's like, old times. That's the case with my friend Mark Suppelsa. But Mark, I hope you feel the same way. Whenever we finish talking, I always wish we had more time together.
It feels like every time I see you or talk to you, I feel like I'm in Minneapolis in 1988 KDWB radio.
Very good.
It never changes.
KDWB.
And how many years has that been?
That's exactly right. Minneapolis, you and I met there. And I think you went from Green Bay to Minneapolis to Chicago, if I remember the bounce right. And we used to play basketball in the parking lot of the radio station. For folks that wonder, and people think about you all the time, you're still in witness protection in Montana, I assume?
Correct. Yes, my probation officer stops by once weekly and says you cannot cross the border into Illinois anymore because you did too much damage there. So I'm hiding here in the bunker.
What is the most beautiful thing you see out your window today?
Right there to my left would be the Swan Valley of the Rocky Mountains. And so essentially, we found this place 1994, and I walked out on the dock right over here, the then dock, and I said to Candace, my lovely wife, my knees are weak. I think we need to do this.
Wow.
And and it was the lake. There's a lake, and the mountains are only a mile and a half away. So you're basically, it kind of looks like Switzerland, and it's just hard to beat. I don't mean to. I'm not bragging. I'm just saying, wow, and I'm telling you, every morning with a cup of coffee, it's different than sitting in my house in Evanston looking at a beautiful tree with a bird in the back. It's not quite the same. So that's why we're like, this is where it's going to be.
For 30 straight years, I've told you I'm going to come see you. Maybe this year will actually be the year, because I remember when you told me you were moving to Montana. I knew you had the house in Montana.
Yeah.
And you were moving to Montana, and I went, they have winter there. And we did Minneapolis winters together. Minneapolis, I always said, was winter for professionals. Does it compare to Montana? Is it better, worse?
I would say here's what I do like about the winter here. I am a downhill skier and a cross-country skier, and I have been for years. But in retirement, Candace actually says the downhill skiing has ruined her days on the beach. Our plan was maybe 2-3 months we'd go travel somewhere and just rent an Airbnb or rent a hut and sit on a beach in the Philippines or something. Well, we did that the first couple of years, but then COVID hit and we didn't travel. And so I continued my skiing, and I got a couple of ski passes because we've got a couple of beautiful ski mountains within 45 minutes of our place here. I skied 40 times this year. And so,
wow.
And here's the beauty of the winter here. Yes, it is a little tougher because when you ski in our mountains, it's not like skiing Colorado, not like skiing Utah. You get wind, you get fog, it can be really cold, but if you dress appropriately and battle through the fog sometimes, because there's a couple of big lakes right near the mountains, right near the ski mountain that causes some of that, you can really do well. But I've had a couple of Chicago friends, TV people say, should I bring my 3 boys out, which can cost $1,000 a ticket to fly out here, plus I said, Ben Bradley, I'm not going to recommend it because you could have a really bad week of fog and you'll be like, why did I do this? Go to Utah.
Oh.
So it can be challenging, but here's the deal. There's no Chicago type humidity. So when it's 15, it's 15. It's not 15 wet with like a 5 below. You're soaking, freezing because of the humidity. There's a difference.
And you and Candace, I know, travel a lot, so you get out of there when you need to if
yes.
the winter turns out to be too much, and I assume the summers are spectacular. By the way, please say hello to Candace. As you know, she's my favorite Suppelsa, she and your children.
Yes.
All right, so let me jump in here. First off, I have exciting news for you. You might have noticed I'm wearing a Survive 2025 hat.
You've survived thus far.
Yes. Well, I think it's America's goal for 2025. I think it should be America's new catchphrase for the year. Here is the Survive 2025 shirt.
That's awesome.
And you're going to get one of each for appearing on the podcast today.
Boy, that's going to be spectacular. I will. I'm telling you, I will wear it. I will wear it. And you know,
I,
I'm
I
I, I'm in the reddest county in a
sure.
very red state just by chance, and so surviving 2025, some of the Trump voters here might look at me like, "What's that mean?"
Well,
I don't know.
here's the thing. Here's the thing. It doesn't have to be political, right?
Right.
Climate change, personal issues, health, whatever the case may be. I'm just looking to survive 2025.
Right.
And of course, it's about Trump. All right. So you and I share a love for broadcasting, traditional broadcasting.
Hmm.
And everything we have in life is because we both did well. And that's a great thing. The traditional broadcasting, like everything else, has changed, and the new media has changed as well. But in the process of it, there's been a perfect storm, in my view, that has created the atmosphere allowing for someone like Trump and his minions to cause the greatest threat to journalism since the Constitution was written, and the idea that the Fourth Estate mattered and should be protected no longer exists. So let me start there. Are you at all optimistic that this can be saved, or do we have to do the best we can and hope for the best when it comes to journalism and telling people the truth about their leaders?
You know, in the long run, I think there can be some saving of this fourth estate, but I'm more concerned about the last thing you said, which is we may be stuck in this for a generation or maybe more. I blame number one. It all began with Rush Limbaugh on the radio. It
You're
started
right.
there.
You're right.
Started there in the late 80s, early 90s. Roger Ailes and Fox News eventually picked up exactly that MO of what Rush was doing, put it on TV. I solely blame Rupert Murdoch and Fox News for what
Yep.
has occurred. The divide between, and not just Donald Trump, but the divide between Americans who say X is truth, and then the other side that says Y is truth, and they look at each other like, what are you talking about?
Right.
And both of them are doing that. What are you talking about?
Right.
It's Fox perpetuating it. If you drive around Montana, Steve, and stop in any gas station or any bar with a TV on, I'm going to tell you what's going to be on there. It's Fox News. Every time, everywhere, every place. And if that's all you're hearing, you're in a time warp. You're in a bad zone of misinformation. And it's been proven. And if I had somebody on our split screen here on the third window who was a Fox watcher saying, no, 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 you're wrong, I would calmly but vehemently say, no, I'm right.
Right.
There are way too many lies being told, perpetuated on Fox that has created what we have today. And how do you stop that? I'm not sure yet.
Yeah, and with the genie being out of the bottle, I don't know how you put it back in either, because the Democrats have done a terrible job of protecting the other side. And we in the world of entertainment and journalism, in my opinion, have done a terrible job of selling the fact that the truth matters and the truth is told. Just because you disagree with a story doesn't mean it's fake news. And I always tell people, find something you disagree with and then find out if it's true. Click a few more times. And if it is true, then accept that. Because you and I grew up in an era of newspapers, where in a newspaper or a 22-minute newscast at night, you would get a small flavor of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't politically driven. As you well said, Fox's direction changed all of that. But it's been the perfect storm of politics, weak political parties, agenda-driven, and really bad defense of this medium that has gotten us to this point. And I worry for your kids, and my grandkids.
Ignorance powers power. And that's
That's well
that's
said.
what That's what's happening. That's what Sean Hannity feeds off of.
Yep.
That's why he makes his $28 million a year during his 1 hour show. That's why he was a Trump advisor, and that's what Trump is attempting to do: keep people ignorant, and it helps those in power.
The other piece of that, though, and you may disagree with this, Trump has no agenda. Trump's agenda is Donald Trump. Trump gets up in the morning and he thinks, what will keep me in the headlines? What will feed that hole that will never be filled for me for attention? But also what will what will make me richer? What will somehow get more money generated for me? He has no ethics. He has no standards. He has no agenda. And frankly, he's not smart enough to understand the job that he has to do every day. The concern is the people that have surrounded him are agenda driven. And those are the ones that are steering the bus in a very scary place that is taking us backwards. The idea that we're stopping science, the idea that experts are now poo-pooed. Have you ever gotten on a plane and said, the cockpit door is still open, you go, hey, I saw a YouTube video. I think I got it from here. Why don't you go sit in the back and relax? I'll fly the plane. Or go into a hospital and tell the doctor, I was watching The Pit. I was streaming The Pit. I'm pretty sure I got the whole surgery thing down. It's maddening.
Not to take you too far into the weeds, but you are spot on. Think Project 2025.
Yep.
Think the Heritage Foundation. Think Stephen Miller. These individuals have taken this administration, and I do believe Trump went, oh, okay, all right, well, yeah. I'll sell what you're trying to do here.
Yeah.
During my cabinet meetings in front of the cameras or during my news conferences. I use news lightly. Project 2025, not to bring you too far into the weeds, is what's behind all of this. If you read anything about it, and that's the Heritage Foundation, a right-leaning conservative foundation. Stephen Miller, who's White House, whatever he is, you've seen him on news conferences in the West Wing. Those guys, those people are driving this, and I believe Trump is just along for the ride, doing exactly what you said. Where can I make the family money? Where can I get in the headlines? Where can I look like the king? You guys tell me what. Maybe the only decision Trump has made is Elon Musk was, taking too many of the headlines, so he fired him, or he dismissed him, so to speak. But other than that, I think this whole thing is driven by a clan back there.
Right.
And I don't use clan lightly either.
No, because there's a truth in the layering of that. The other thing that I just wish people would understand is, in the same way, whatever your job is, your business is, there are legal protections for it, and there are ethics and standards your business has to operate in. You run a local mechanic shop, you got to do a good job for your customers. You've got standards that apply to your profession. Real news is not hard to find. The New York Times, whether you like the New York Times viewpoint or not, the New York Times employs floors of lawyers to make sure that they stay between the white lines. CBS News, every major news operation does. WGN TV here in Chicago also made sure that you and your people were adhering to ethical standards.
Sure.
None of it's made up unless you're in primetime on Fox or in primetime on the fringe networks. And by the way, I'm not letting MSNBC off the hook either. They're way too far to the left, and they present the wrong picture there too.
I will say, though, and I've argued this with or debated this with a number of people, you may disagree with the opinion section of the New York Times. You may disagree with the opinion mouthpieces of MSNBC. Here's what does not happen versus what happens on OAN, Newsmax, and Fox. They don't lie. They don't lie. You can say what you want about any MSNBC prime timer. They're going to give their opinion. You may disagree with it and say, "Well, that's baloney. I'm not. I don't espouse that." Here's the deal: they're not going to lie to you. They don't do that. That's
right.
They are more of a traditional, mainstream, even though it's left and maybe distasteful to a lot of people, they don't lie. Fox
Right.
lies. They
Right.
paid the $890,000 because they lied about the Dominion voting machines. But that's just the tip of the iceberg with Fox every day. So that therein lies the difference. And you are right that the lawyers that are on, when I was doing investigative stuff, some of the hardest part was getting past the lawyers. You know, my scripts, writing them, working with my producer, going out and pounding the pavement to chase bad guys and coming back and trying to put a story together. My producers or my news director loved it. Now we got to go to the lawyers. Okay, here we go. And
Right.
that's how tough they were on us. There was no lying. There was no obfuscating. This was straight ahead mainstream, and I'm proud to say it, mainstream media that has been in this country in existence in a very good way for about 50 years. Now, there was yellow journalism back in the 20s, back in the 1800s, back in the 1700s. I mean, all those broadsheets were nasty, political. It probably makes this look uh, patty cake compared to what they were doing back then. But we had a standard set. You know, the Edward R. Murrows, the Walter Cronkites, those guys set a standard. Peter Jennings, they set a standard. Ted Koppel. And,
Mark Suppelsa.
well, I just followed what they did and said,
No, but
this
I'm
is what I
telling you,
learned.
I'm telling you, this is one of the things that I hope kids who still have a passion for this, and I hope they do, need to understand. I never knew what political party you were. I never knew how you voted or how you felt about issues because you were there to tell us what was going on and to tell us the truth every single night. And
I will tell you.
you were always 10 times the reporter you were as an anchor, and you're the best anchor I'd seen since Peter Jennings.
No,
So,
well,
we're all born into something. You were born to do what you did, and there just aren't enough of you left anymore.
I appreciate your complimentary hyperbole, but so I don't rank up there with what you said, but I tried my hardest. I will tell you this, and I've told people here, I've debated conservatives here, conservatives who don't necessarily like Trump, those that love Trump, liberals who hate Trump, and I've talked about it, and I've said, no, I'm not going to join you with your protest downtown Kalispell anti. I'm still a reporter, but I will tell you this. I'm going to give you my voting record right now. 1980, John Anderson, independent, didn't vote for Reagan, and didn't vote for Ted Kennedy, or didn't vote for Jimmy Carter. I voted for Barack Obama one time. I voted for Mitt Romney another time. I voted for Bob Dole.
Same
I
here.
voted.
Same here.
I voted for Hillary Clinton. I'm all over the map, and that's what a reporter should be.
Yeah, and also as a talk show host, whenever I would deal with serious issues, and the older I got, the more serious it got, I always felt like it was calling balls and strikes. I didn't care what
Right.
party you were. I cared
That's right.
that you were doing the right thing.
That's right.
And when people were doing, I was screaming on the air about Bill Clinton should have been thrown out of office.
I voted for Ross Perot.
That's another great point. And by the way, if the chickens don't come home, stop looking for them. Listen, I agree 1,000%. But we crossed over another very scary point recently, a milestone, if you will, in the 60 Minutes story. Because even in this world of confusing what's real, what's not real to people, 60 Minutes was a news program for 50 plus years that you could count on. It's a little deep in the weeds, as we've used that phrase a couple of times now, but there's a giant transaction that will make the owner, in quotes, of CBS quite rich if it goes through. And that involves not having Trump block said transaction and has the woman who runs the company that is CBS News and telling CBS how 60 Minutes can do their job. Their longtime executive producer, I believe they've only had two, Don Hewitt and the guy that just left. Mm-hmm. Those two guys, Hewitt passed and this guy just left, and the president of CBS News just left. If we lose 60 Minutes, we're in trouble even in a bigger way, buddy.
That's right. It reminds me of what these law firms are going through under the Trump administration. Let's go back to if if the Trump administration and the Project 2025 is to subvert or take over the various elements of our democracy system, which isn't perfect, but let's say, for example, they want to take away the financial budgetary process from Congress so they can use money to do whatever they want, which would be we're going to hire a bunch of our law firms to sue your law firm until your law firm stops representing the college kid who spoke out on behalf of Hamas or on behalf of
Right.
genocide. And so 60 Minutes is just a, sadly, is just a nugget of that capitulation, not 60 Minutes, but CBS News, capitulation to the Trump administration because you know what? We we tend to we may gain something by fighting, but by not fighting Trump. Let's work over here at this in the 60 Minutes newsroom and let's try and soften things up a little bit. That's very dangerous. Same thing with law firms. You know what? We're not going to represent any more people that were taken off the street without any sort of due process and jailed for 2 weeks, even though they were a sophomore in college and did nothing but just write a term paper. That's very, and that's the goal of 2025. That's the Project 2025. That's the goal of what is occurring with these people surrounding Donald Trump and Trump himself, I believe, based on what I'm reading.
It is the dictator's playbook. And many of those in Trump's inner circles are hack sopranos. They're mob wannabes. But a lot of them are very smart people who are dangerous because they're smart and because they're now in a position to manipulate the system. The damage that's already been done in the first few months of Trump 2, now it's personal, is hard to quantify. And we may not know the full effect of it for a generation or longer, probably long after you and I are gone. But if you're not offended by the notion of the state the country is in for your kids or your grandkids, you're selfish or you're not paying attention, or maybe it's a little bit of both. Because journalism matters. That's how you get the truth. And when I hear people freaking out over things like anonymous sources, every story of great controversy about political corruption had anonymous sources. Watergate's the easiest example. Anonymous sources are not fake news stories. Anonymous sources are driven by Democrats and Republicans and others and whistleblowers to make sure a story is told. And what is the number one thing you were taught in journalism? You must have two sources
Or more.
on a story.
Yeah.
And your
I've
bullshit
had,
meter.
Steve, I've had multiple stories that were where it was the heat was on. We had, we knew we had to be right, and we had to produce the goods, otherwise we weren't going to air it. And I've had multiple investigations over the years at my 3 different TV stations in Chicago where the boss said, I want 3 sources. 2 wasn't good enough. You need 3. They held me to the fire. Those sources were anonymous. They had to be protected.
Of course they did. And there have been court battles over protecting sources. Journalists have gone to jail for this. I never thought in our lifetime we'd see this, but journalists who did the job you did for all these years and talk show hosts like me are now under political threat and the possible threat of doing time for doing their job, the same way doctors are for performing life-saving medical treatments for abortions. It's outrageous. It's wrong. It's every reason. Back when they wore funny hats and funny shoes, they said, enough of kings. We're going to go to the wilderness of some place called the America. Maybe we'll call it the United States someday. And we're going to be there because we don't want to live like this. It's not hyperbole, boys and girls. This is the path we're headed down.
As Scott Pelley said in his commencement speech, which I noticed that this was at Wake Forest University. Yep. I noticed that all the headlines, when I was just researching it a little bit, all the headlines saying Scott Pelley goes crazy, loses it,
right,
disparages Trump. They were all Murdoch entities. Every one of them was a Murdoch. New York Post, Daily Mail, Fox News. The rest of them were. Scott Pelley didn't even name Trump by name. But what he said was, no, Never said his word. Never said his name. But what he did say, which was very important, which is we should be debating, not demonizing. Just very simple. We should be debating, not demonizing. And that's all this administration appears to be doing to anybody that is in their way with what they want to do with what I agree with you is the dictator's playbook.
He made a great point in that speech, and I love that Pelly's taken a stand because he's had great success. It's not about Scott Pelley. It's about his concern, the concern you and I have as well, to stand up and say something and to use your platform, whatever your platform is, to fight for what's right and to tell the truth. He could have been fired for what he said at the end of the 60 Minutes program a month and a half or 2 months ago when he shot down this deal that was being made and the threat to journalistic independence at 60 Minutes. And all the point he was trying to make at Wake Forest was what any great commencement speaker would do: inspire 22-year-olds to go out and fight for what's right. And what's right is that we have journalists who can tell us the truth because we need to hear it. Now, there's a whole second, third, fourth, fifth layer that you have to fight through. The internet has changed everything, and it's not all good. But dig deeper. When you see a headline, if you were shocked by the headline, don't just agree with it. Find out if it's true. Read the first paragraph. Check your second source and go forward. That's the only hope. And I know you've drummed this into your kids the way I have into mine and the way my son will into my grandkids. But I hope parents are doing this. And I just don't know if they are anymore.
Well, and I was talking to my son who lives in London and has been overseas since he graduated from college. He comes home here to America for vacations with us, but he sees a broader perspective. And he pointed out that there are a few things that the Trump administration has attempted to do or said they're going to attempt to do that he agrees with. For example, double taxing an individual like my son who draws a salary from a British law firm. There's some sort of taxation that America demands of him as
right.
Because he's an American citizen still with his American passport, and that's duplicitous. That's that he's getting double taxed, and so Trump is right. Get rid of that thing.
Right.
Trump saying, for example, that waiters and waitresses shouldn't be taxed on tips. More power to them. They probably don't make enough money. Period. They can't afford housing in our community. The waiters and waitresses. We have restaurants that would be thriving, but they're closed Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday because they don't have enough help because the waiters and waitresses can't afford to live here, so they can only commute a few times. Fine, those are fine policies. And going back to your point, so my son and I have an open debate, and my son, I just said, for example, when Trump banned the Associated Press from the Oval Office, news conferences, I was like, that's a red line for your father. That's completely a red line. And my son was like, I'm sure my son was concerned about it, but he was kind of like, yeah, well, it doesn't really affect him. It doesn't affect my neighbor who, voted for Hillary, but my other neighbor who voted for Trump, they're like, they'll manage. No, you don't understand. For me, that's a red line. So we all have the different issues with this administration, pro or con. And I'm not saying every one that I've heard is con, but the 60 Minutes issue and these law firm issues and these universities being told to toe the line, or we're not going to give you funding research for medical breakthroughs.
Right.
That's red line stuff for me. That's red line because that's not democracy. That's heavy-handed.
Even if you are a Trumper of the most ardent variety, you cannot believe it's okay for a shady Middle Eastern nation, out of the gosh darn good of their heart, to give the President of the United States a $400 million airplane. And by the way, I don't know if you heard, Mark, the library is going to have it afterwards because just like you, my public library had a jumbo jet.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
I mean, if it's a bribe, it's a bribe. It's insane that he gets away with this every day, and he keeps pushing the line farther because the Senate won't stop him. I don't know how they look in the mirror. I don't know how they answer their wives, husbands, boyfriends, whatever, their kids, grandkids. And if the Senate doesn't stop them and the judiciary is questioned every day, you better have journalists out there fighting because we're running out of people on our team.
Robert Reich, the left-leaning, but also worked under Gerald Ford, Jimmy Carter, and then Treasury Secretary for Bill Clinton, and is
Yeah, great economist mind, but also a
Yep.
great public servant.
Yeah, and he continues to put stuff out saying, wait a minute, heads up, take a look at this. He sent something out 2 days ago that a friend of mine who's sent me saying, read this one. Within the big, beautiful budget bill, there's a little caveat in there that they pushed through that passed, which clips the wings of the judicial system in America. That anytime there's an injunction, there is, again, gobbledygook wording that basically the White House can overrule some of these injunctions, and Congress passed it because it's tucked in there. Robert Reich pointed out, saying, this is the last bastion, this is the last wall against this administration for the things that they're trying to do when people sue to say, no, you can't sue Harvard, you can't take Harvard's money away. Harvard sues. A judge says, wait a minute, hang on a second. There's an injunction here. White House, you must stop doing this until we can assess this. There's a little thing in that big budget bill that says the White House can overstep that.
And all it takes is one sentence, two sentences that become a matter of law, and then it's impossible to overturn.
And so you ask the question, what's the Senate doing? That's a great question.
You know, the political environment in this country is such that 90 million people didn't vote last fall. Regardless of what you heard or believe, the final count for the presidency was very close, very close. And if a fraction of those 90 million people voted, it could well have gone a different way. Trump won fair and square, the same way he lost fair and square in 2020. But winning doesn't mean you gut America and that you don't consider the fact that you're the president of the United States. You're not the president of the people who believe Donald Trump's right. So I guess I would just say, Mark, and I don't know any other way to tell people, and I tell people all the time to do this, you got to let people know who are your elected representatives. It's easy to Google if you don't know who they are, and don't feel bad if you don't know who your Congress people are, or even your senators. But you've got to let people know that if they want your vote, because you are one of the people that are going to show up, or you wouldn't be watching this on YouTube or listening to it. You are engaged. And if you want my vote, you're going to fight to protect journalists. You're going to fight to protect the people that tell the stories so that you will know the truth. Because whether you and I are still around or not, at some point, Trump Republicans will not be in power. You want the Democrats to come in and do the same thing that you're doing right now? It's the end of America. You can't have it.
That's right. And, you know, I do wonder if I used to think that when some of the things like early on when when Donald Trump was standing up there talking about, injecting yourself with bleach, and I was like, oh,
right,
COVID stuff, some of those early things that we were appalled and like, what is he saying? And I know Republicans were saying the same thing. Well, he says some crazy things, but never mind that. Focus on this thing and this thing. That my issue.
Yeah, look over here. No, look over here.
Right, border immigrants, illegal immigrant.
Right.
But I used to say, gosh, in 40 years, the kids of these Trump voters or the grandkids of these Trump voters are going to deny that their grandfather ever voted for Trump. Now I'm not so sure. I'm really not so sure. I really think it's possible that in 40 years, we may have somebody that tries to mimic him because here's the playbook. Look at Orban, in Hungary. I mean, there are a number of Trump-like characters out there that have gained some power. America may see this again because of this. This is like 100 years of history going on right now.
Right. And the question is, how do we survive 2025 and the next 3 years? How do we get through these 4 years? And how do the Democrats get out of their own way to run someone who is competitive? You know, honestly, I told Senator Durbin this in Illinois. I said, you lose to Trump twice. If you were a professional sports franchise, they'd take away your team.
Right.
It seems impossible that you could lose to Donald Trump twice, but yet the Democrats figured out a way to do it. And in a future Substack, I write columns for Substack. In a future Substack, I'm going to go through all of Congress, all 535, and grade them out as to what they've done or haven't done. Because if your elected representative is not representing you, throw them out. Throw them out. I never believed in that in the old days. When you and I were coming up, I never believed throw them all out. That's just that's the old people in my, I grew up with. We're just bitching. No, if they're not getting it done, get rid of them. And the problem is those who were getting it done, and I consider Senator Durbin among them, and he's getting out for a number of reasons, but I guarantee you his frustration over the years is built to a point where it's impossible to get anything done. So if you have voter apathy to the tune of 90 million people not showing up, and you have elected representative apathy of those who can actually change things, again, you better have writers, you better have reporters, you better have talk show hosts who are telling you the truth. Otherwise, I don't know where we go from here, because all great empires end. I'd rather not be around to witness the end of ours.
And I don't want to hand it to my grandkids that way.
Right. 100%. I mean, it seems pretty idyllic in Montana. Maybe I'm just going to move in with you and Candace.
You could easily do that, Steve, but I will tell you, when you drive around certain parts of Montana and you see Confederate flags flying on the back of a pickup truck, or, you might say, well, so sometimes, and not everybody's that way here. Trust me, I need to be fair. But sometimes when somebody asks me about Montana, I say, it's a beautiful view where sometimes weird people get in the way.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. That's great. Well, my friend, we miss you in Chicago and around the country. Folks watch on WGN for all those years. I'm glad you're happy and healthy. I'm glad your kids are doing great. Your daughter Ava is an up-and-coming songwriter in Nashville and a tremendous talent. And we're blessed in so many ways. And we're not just two old guys sitting on a porch waiting for our country time lemonade to be brought to us. We're bitching for the right reasons.
That's right.
And we're hoping that you, as listeners and people watching on YouTube and wherever you're seeing this, that you will take care of things. I'll leave you with this, because you and I both know a lot of good alcoholics.
That's right.
These are people who meant well, and they got on the wrong side of things, and hopefully they were able to turn it around. But there's a thing in AA that was told to me. And I come from the other side. I was an Olympic codependent.
Right.
I never helped my brother. People always go, oh, it's great what you did for your brother. My brother saved his own life. And you know what it's like.
That's right.
Yeah. So,
nobody could help me. Right.
You made a choice. I'm going to stop. But there was a great thing that an AA lifer told me. And it said, it's the hula hoop theory. And I said, what's the hula hoop theory? And they said, okay, there's a guy. And it doesn't matter, by the way, if this story is true, because it matters. And it goes to everything we've talked about here. A guy is newly sober, and he's pissed. He's bitter. He's pissed. He just wants a drink. And his sponsor says, we're going to go down the street. There's a nice lady there. She's a widow. We're going to clean her garage. And they go into the garage, and it's hot, and it's miserable, and he's getting pissed off, and he's more bitter than ever. And he just wants a drink, and he just wants to leave. And finally, the sponsor has had enough of the whining and bitching. There's a hula hoop hanging on a wall. And he takes the hula hoop off the wall. He sets it down on the ground at the front of the garage. He goes, stand in the middle of that. And the recovering alcoholic goes, what are you talking about? He goes, stand in the middle of that. So he stands in the middle of it, and he goes, spin around. He thinks the guy's lost his mind. He goes, no, spin around. Take one lap. Spin around. He takes one lap around. He goes, what's your point? He goes, everything you can see, fix that first. Fix what you can see first. Fix your home. Fix your driveway. Fix your garage. Fix everything that involves your kids. Fix your school board. Fix all of that. Then worry about the big stuff. Don't walk away from the big stuff that we're all privileged to be a part of, voting. But stop eating, drinking, stop drinking the Kool-Aid and eating whatever they're trying to feed us and do the right thing. It's the hula hoop theory, and I love it.
That's awesome.
We've just lost sight of it.
That's perfectly said. In AA, I was also taught keep your side of the street clean.
That's
You know,
it.
don't worry about the other side of the street, which could be the big things. That's the hula hoop theory that you're talking about. Fix you. Fix you first, and then fix what's near you. See what you can see on your side of the street and keep that clean, whether it be your job, your education, your kids, your family. That's your side of the
That's it.
street. Work with it, but get sober first. That's the first thing, because you can't do anything if this is screwed up.
How long do you have now? How many years?
13.
God bless you, man.
Lucky 13. May 3rd. Yeah.
I remember vividly the night you announced it. You called me before and said, "I just want you to know what I'm about to say," and
Right.
nobody knew. Nobody knew, but you
No.
knew. And
I
you
was
knew
an
you had to make a
isolator.
change, and I'm forever proud of you for that, as I am my own brother. All right, buddy. So before I let you go, again, I want to remind you, you are going to receive this fabulous shirt and hat set, Survive 25. Let me get it on camera here. Survive 25, 2025, I should say. Survive2025.us. Get your shirts and hats just like this one, and you'll look good. And remember, it doesn't have to be a fight. We're just all trying to get through this together. But I love you. I miss you. Give Candace a hug, and thank you for doing this.
Kisses to you too, and you and your family, and Ross and Amy and everybody. And I will wear that proudly. And as soon as I get it, I will take a selfie and send it to you. And
Nice.
you keep that private. You don't have to share that with anybody, but I'll
Oh,
prove to you that I'll be wearing it.
I'm going to post it so fast it'll make your head spin. Thank you, Mark Suppelsa.